So good afternoon, everyone. My name is Alessandra Perna. I'm Gaia-X Hub and Data Space Manager, and I'll be your host for today. My warm welcome to the first Gaia-X Data Space Business Committee event. Today is the first time we do a Data Space Business Committee event open to all Gaia-X members. We are really happy to welcome you all. The scope of today's meeting is to learn about the committee mission and its sounding boards, therefore the ecosystem, the hubs, and the Lighthouse, and we will hear insights from several Gaia-X ecosystems, as well as their projects and their use cases. Let's go through the agenda together. You should be able to see my screen. So we'll first give the floor to Thomas Hahn, chair of the committee, for an introduction of the Data Space Business Committee. We'll then hear from Bert Verdonck, who is the lead of the coordination of Gaia-X ecosystem. And we'll hear from Jan Fischer to learn what are the Gaia-X hubs. And then we will hear from Dominique Epardeau, lead of the Gaia-X Lighthouse project coordination, as well as lead of the mobility ecosystem. We'll then go through several ecosystems of our committee, the mobility, the tourism, manufacturing, education, energy, health, logistics, and location. I'll introduce the speaker later on. And we will learn, as well as the ecosystems, also on the two new Lighthouse projects, Gaia-X for Future Mobility and Omega-X. These Lighthouse projects have been announced at the Market-X event in Vienna in March. This event is recorded and will be available for all members on the members platform. And without further ado, I'd like to give the floor to Thomas Hahn, Data Space Business Committee Chair. Thomas, the floor is yours.
Yeah, many thanks, Alessandra, to introducing and setting up the floor. What we want to do today, information, and also I think later contribution when we are speaking about survey where you can provide us some input. And as mentioned before, the event will be recorded. We saying when you are participating still, you have nothing against if the event is recorded. Hopefully it was now correct formulated. And for sure, like usual, is a pretty competitive topic. Always to have to say this, that we make no alignment regarding pricing or some other stuff, which we anyway not doing in this kind of event. So several, a warm welcome. Happy to have this first event regarding the Data Space Business Committee. I'm chairing this, and Alessandra mentioned Dominique and Bert, for example. We're heading some kind of subgroups, but I will come later how we are doing this and so on. Not later, Alessandra is very fast. When you're looking at the blue box, you see exactly the three areas which we want to address. Is the middle layer regarding the hubs, regarding the vertical ecosystems and Lighthouse projects. For every three parts, we give an update. And as you have seen in the second part, we are having some kind of details. What we have on the top, and this is not a secret, as said before, Dominique and Bert, for example, heading some of this blue boxes, so to say. We have some kind of regular topic, how we align this. This comes the steering committee. Also not a secret, because we have to set up this event and to organize, and we make also the link to other initiatives. You have said the Data Space Business Alliance, maybe some support activities running on the European level, where we keep the link to and other topic. But nevertheless, and that's exactly so today's reason, we are, let's say, open information, because everybody from us wants to get something out of this and to create something. And on the bottom, we have sometimes dedicated projects with a beginning and end, where we're looking, for example, like business models, where Dominique has done some kind of analysis and some kind of paper and so on. This is somehow the structure which we are fulfilling. steering, that we get it organized, the sounding board with the 3 pillars, on-demand projects. And somebody is asking this from name with these sounding boards. You know, we have established projects. No, we have established processes inside the Gaia-X organization when you're speaking about requirements from a Lighthouse project towards the services which is Gaia-X providing and so on. And we as this team want to be a sounding board, so not interfering with the existing processes. I think that was a main topic. And Alessandra, when I forgot something, please be in the background and correct me or add when I forget something as before.
We do.
Okay, perfect. Maybe we go over to the next slide, not wasting too much time. So what we have done up to now, as said before, we structured the Data Space Business Committee a little bit in a different way. We have for the hubs, for the Lighthouse and for the ecosystem, some kind of regular meetings, which you see here. Sometimes you see a date, sometimes it's open because we have done this or forgot to write down the date, but we meet somehow every 2 to 3 months with this. We will have this, I think, how often will we have this meeting, Anna? Alessandra?
We have twice a year. We will
twice
do
a year
DSBC
this kind
meeting.
of meeting, but nevertheless, this is what we are regular doing twice a year, like today is the first time. But if anything popping up, if you have any request or something else, we or Alessandra will take care for this, that we can make something also on demand. We have also some kind of specific event workshops. The last time was in Helsinki 2 months ago, especially regarding ecosystem and hubs, and for the lighthouses. And you see later a lot of lighthouses which are running or which are popping up. We have also, depending on the needs, some kind of events. And last but not least, I mentioned this indirectly. We explained the sounding boards, and I mentioned that we have established a process inside the Gaia-X Association. And for sure, as you can imagine, we have a close contact with Pierre. And when something is missing or something up, we can set it up. But I'm a little bit keen that for the requirements, we have processes for the sounding, for the hubs, for the lighthouses, for the ecosystem. We have the sounding board, not to interfere to each other. Okay, maybe here on the right side, I think these are 2 lighthouse projects, just to mention. I'm not sure if you have this later, a little bit more in detail, but as said before, if you want any information about, we will provide this independent from our twice a year meeting like we're doing today. Maybe just going to the next. Okay, what we want to do is really, because you know, when we have a lighthouse project for energy, for industry, for health, for tourism or something else, we want also to look how this interact, because you know, it's also this cross topic which we want to address and to look what is needed for us. And that's the reason why we are working a little bit in this mapping of the different initiatives, and also always really a call to engage or to articulate what is needed, because exactly this cross-sectorial is where Gaia-X can play an important role, because no other association can looking at this sectorial, cross domain, or however you phrase it, where we have here some kind of topics. As you see here on the right side again, but it's really, let's say, asynchronous maybe is the wrong word, but they have also, depending what they need for the manufacturing, for media, for public sector, for education, for health, you know, we have and on demand or scheduled also some kind of webinars. I think the last one where I was participating was manufacturing. You know, by definition, I'm coming from manufacturing industry, and I was participating. And of course, as said before, be active, engage, challenge us when you need something, and challenge us also for the sectorial topics, we are here to help you. Next slide, please. I'm running. Yeah, that was in Helsinki. As said before, I make it very quick. The slides anyway you get after, so I have not to step into, but only to show you that we have also a lively community behind. But as said before, open communication like we're doing today to all of you, and also the possibility in between for sure when something happening to step inside. Next slide, please. Yeah, as you know, we have several types of event, TechX, MarketX. The MarketX, you know, was in Vienna, where, let's say, Lighthouse project and others are presenting on a more topic to establish or to strengthen or to enhance the collaboration and to find and to look for new business opportunities. Next slide, please. Yeah, that's somehow, I think we can skip this. You get it at the end. And as I mentioned before, really how the different things, the mobility, the logistics, tourism, how they are interlinked, because exactly this cross topic, I think, where we can really give benefit to us all from the Gaia-X Association, because this is, let's say, where we can bridging between the different initiative, the collaboration, the needs from the different domains, and so on. Next slide. And I think here we have a call. Yeah, sorry, just struggling. Do you want to join the sprint? Maybe Alessandra, just taking over briefly about this.
Yes, with pleasure. As following the mapping that we just displayed, we'll need to run through all the Gaia-X use cases to find use cases that can be useful for more than one sector, and that will be the basis of the links that you saw in the previous slide among the sectors. To do this exercise, we would like to open the opportunity to all Gaia-X members to contribute, and this is why we would like to launch a sprint for the second half of July to run the exercise. As you can see on the slide, the scope is to identify the common use cases that will serve as basis of the mapping for identifying which cross dependencies are across all the domains. But also this would serve to identify cross-sectoral topics, as for instance sustainability, that covers of course more than only one domain, and this would be an exercise that will facilitate possibly also the preparation of presentation for the Gaia-X Summit later this year. So if you are interested in participating, please contact me. Your contribution would be highly appreciated.
And maybe to add from an industry perspective, I think this is needed, this cross-topic. You know, my apologies, as I said before, I'm coming more from the manufacturing area domain, but as you are well aware, high dependence to energy when you're looking at active political discussions, when you have some data spaces handling the energy topics and some data space handling the manufacturing topic, you can imagine that cross topic is highly important for all of us. You can make a similar story regarding finance when you're speaking about this. I know also in tourism, you know, there was also discussion to get maybe for some kind of health check also a link to the health data space, but only to show that exactly this cross topics. That's the reason why I'm highlighting this is highly important, and we really would highly appreciate for all of us, like Alessandra said, to provide some input for the sprint. For us, that is always important. Next slide, please. Yes, again here, Alessandra.
Thank you, Thomas. We prepared a survey that we would like to share with you now live to hear from you where you would like to contribute, how the association can support you in contributing to ecosystems, but also to working group, and what kind of contribution you could provide to our ecosystem. So you can learn throughout the webinar about some of our ecosystems. Not all of them will be presented today, but as said, we will organize a second event later this year, and you can get familiar on how this work and share with us through the survey how you would like to contribute. I will share the link on the chat in a minute.
And Alessandra remembers this. I have had a discussion with her above the structure of the survey, and I was keen that what is needed, what are your requests, is some of the first question, because we want really to do something where we all can benefit from us. Okay, and now I'm silent, and hopefully Alessandra have not forgot too much to mention.
No, that was great. Thank you so much, Thomas, for the complete overview on the overall committee. I saw a hand raised. I would suggest to have questions directly at the end of the webinar, but please feel free to use the chat for any question. Otherwise, we'd like to go ahead and give the floor to Bert Verdonck, that is the lead of Gaia-X ecosystem coordination, but also the lead of the health community, as well as lead of the policy rules document working group, Gaia-X board member, and much more. So Bert, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Alessandra. Yes, this keeps me quite busy, so thank you. And this effort of coordinating between all these ecosystems I do together with Alessandra, of course, and also with Christian Linder. So thank you for teaming up here in trying to get this coordination going. Because like Thomas said, we are really looking into also cross-sector or cross-ecosystem use cases and opportunities, because that's where the value of a standardization effort like Gaia-X is driving will even come more to fruition. So that's really the next wave we want to go into. The reason also why we call this now ecosystems is because the real world is not square. The real world is not a matrix with only a horizontal and a vertical direction. So verticals felt a bit as a too narrow way to describe our activity. So these are really dynamic ecosystems in a certain sectorial domain centric space. But we should not see these too much and again creating silos, because the whole interest of a data set is to collect collaborating participants. And if we put participants again in boxes and verticals and different spaces, we create islands again, and that's not the idea. So that's why ecosystem is this very broad word and an invitation to connect between these various groups of participants. Okay, when we go into the slides, so first a reminder, so these are today the actively organized ecosystems. And Christian, Alessandra, and myself, we have interviewed actually all the coordinating leads of these ecosystems in the past months, which was a really worthwhile exercise. And we actually made an extensive report from where all of these ecosystems are, what are the common struggles that these have. And we discussed also this report in our meeting in Helsinki. The focus moving forward very much of our ecosystems and the invitation to the groups collaborating there is to drive market adoption. When the Gaia-X framework is gradually becoming more and more mature, we really want to identify more projects, more participants, look also cross-border use cases, because very frequently that's normal. Initiatives start in a local country-specific setting, but the value will come again when we go cross-border, to share knowledge, to also work further on standardization. What are the missing standards we still have? Which further standardization steps need to take place? And can we identify cross-sector or cross-ecosystem use cases? So those are what all of these ecosystems are working on and what we invite them to continue to work on. One important thing of what we're doing in the next slide, we will give an overview. Of course, we want to have these ecosystems participate in the European data strategy. And you know this slide, most of you, I'm sure, will know this slide from the Commission, where the Commission is fostering and also putting quite some subsidy money in the creation of these sectoral data spaces. Again, not to create islands, so I hope not these vertical blobs will be islands, but we are invited with the Gaia-X framework and with the Gaia-X communities to contribute to the creation of these data spaces. That is also happening through the Data Space Support Center, which is an activity where Gaia-X is also a contributor to, where we try to further drive standardizations across all of the technology areas that we need, all of the building blocks that are required, and also concretely supporting these initiatives to come off the ground. So here you see the bigger scheme, the grander scheme from a European strategy perspective. And with these Gaia-X ecosystems, we try to really join and participate in this movement. And so that's a bit of a sign of success. We try in all of these data space initiatives to be present with Gaia-X members, many of you, and also to drive the agenda of these data space initiatives and influence the way these data spaces are getting created. So in the next slide, we will show where and how we are visible. So here you see again the Gaia-X ecosystems represented with some of the names of the parties and the Gaia-X members driving, either coordinating or driving these ecosystems. And you see also listed some of the Lighthouse initiatives or the preparatory acts, as the Commission names them. In many of these areas, there are initiatives running that are preparing for the creation of these data spaces. And in some of these, you also see the eventual implementation projects, so projects that get subsidies to implement the data space in each of these domains. So in the education area, there is already Prometheus-X, which is already a recognized Gaia-X Lighthouse initiative, and they are now became the coordinator of the implementing project, which is called Edge Skills, which is the official European Commission subsidized data space in the education domain. In the mobility domain, we have mobility data space in Germany, we have Iona-X started in France, and these parties are actively working in the mobility space. AgData Hub is doing that, is pulling the ecosystem in the agriculture domain. In the tourism domain, and I think I miss even an icon here, but I don't know if it pops up later or we forgot to add it, but there are preparatory actions from the Commission in the tourism domain. There are actually two. And those are preparatory actions, and we hope that after a while the Commission will also fund a foundational data space in that tourism domain. In the health domain, well, that's a bit more complicated, and I will talk more about that later. It's a very fragmented domain. Many initiatives are active there, and the Team X and Health X DataLoft projects are very visible Gaia-X initiatives in Germany, but we really need also cross-border initiatives, and we will need more initiatives to come off the ground there. In the energy domain, it's very populated. So actually there are 5 very visible projects active, yeah, it will be interesting to see how they will further converge in the future in the energy domain. Next slide. And Alessandra, I think I had a, oh yeah, these are the pop-ups.
Here
actually.
You go.
So we should have clicked, yes. So actually here you see more of the preparatory activities that are popping up on the slide now. So actually the 2 in tourism are visible there. And in health, UCAIM and the European Genomic Data Infrastructure are already implementation projects that are ongoing with Commission support in the health domain. In energy domain, there is int.net here. That is a coordinating action that should drive convergence of all of these ongoing initiatives in the energy domain. Okay, next slide then. And let's make sure all the icons are on. Yes, I think here they're all on. So in the manufacturing domain, Thomas will talk more about that, but DataSpace 4.0 is the coordinating initiative in the manufacturing domain. In smart cities, it is the very long name, the data spaces for smart and sustainable cities and communities. And this team is now starting to transition from preparation phase into implementing phase. In the media domain, there is an implementation project started called TEMS, Trusted European Media Data Space. And in the Green Deal arena, there is a great initiative, which is a preparatory action. So you see that all of these ecosystems, which were already Gaia-X existing ecosystems, most of our participants became part of the preparatory actions, and many of those now become part of the implementing projects in these various domains. I think there is one more slide because there are a couple of domains where which are not active Gaia-X ecosystems. So you don't see the Gaia-X icon on these, but from an aspect of completeness, we wanted to add those. But there are European funding activities going on in the European language data space. Construction is under construction, but there's a lot of talks going on there. Public procurement has a more concrete proposal now in the public sector. We actually talked about that. I got introduced to that last week in the Gaia-X organized public sector data space event. And cultural heritage is also getting a lot of traction there. So here, there's no immediate direct Gaia-X ecosystem involvement, but that might change if we see more traction here. And if some of the membership, some of you feel we should get a Gaia-X-centered activity going here, then it is something we could consider. So also interest of time, I think this concludes the overview of where our ecosystems are active, and let's hope we can all continue that.
Thank you, Bert, for your presentations. And from Gaia-X ASBL side, we are very proud to be supporting most of these projects also with endorsement letter from our project and proposal office. And some of these projects were born within the ecosystems. So this is also one opportunity for Gaia-X members to collaborate together and submitting projects. So it's another reason why you as Gaia-X members should join our ecosystems and contribute to their activities. Thank you again, Bert. We'll see you on stage later, and we'll go forward with calling on stage Jan Fischer. Jan recently took over the coordination of our German hub, and together with that, the overall coordination of Gaia-X hubs, together with Jelle, the Belgian hub coordinator. So it's very nice to have you here, Jan, and learn more about Gaia-X hubs. The floor is yours.
Yeah, hello everybody, and thanks for having me today at the DSBC call. Yeah, as Alessandra mentioned, I took over from Peter Kramer. I think most of you know Peter for the last 3 years at Gaia-X. So I took over at the beginning of July. So I'm very new in my position as a Gaia-X hub coordinator. But I worked for the Gaia-X hub Germany for the last 2.5 years. So I am very familiar with the project and also in contact with a lot of you. And but I'm happy to be here today. I'm talking a bit what are Gaia-X hubs doing, and what's our task. So as you can see here in this map, there are 16 EU-based Gaia-X hubs. Gaia-X is much more than a German Franco project. You see, it's a very European, very international, because besides the European-based 16 Gaia-X hubs, we also have 4 non-EU hubs and 7 countries that are candidate for a Gaia-X hub in the future. So we started Gaia-X for 2.5 years with 2 national hubs, and you can see the interest of Gaia-X and the whole project is rising and is going on. We as the hub coordinators understand us as a part of a marketing team of Gaia-X. We try to be the first point of contact in our countries. We try to get in touch with as many as stakeholders as possible. We try to connect the interested stakeholders with our ecosystem working groups on a national and sub-national level. Thanks to Bert, who gives us a good overview of our ecosystem working groups, and that's mainly one of our biggest tasks that we are doing as the hub coordinators. Additional to this, yes, you can see here the scope of all of the Gaia-X hub. We try to find a common way where we all speak together in one voice. And we try to collaborate with our national governments. We bring the Gaia-X stakeholders together and building up ecosystems on a national and sub-national level, as I said. So, Alessandra, I think that are the two slides that we have for today. I want to make it really short and dirty for this point, and I think I catch a little bit of time so that we can hand over to the more important vertical ecosystem group presentation. So thanks a lot for your patience. And if you want to reach out to us, to the Gaia-X hub coordinators, you all can find our contacts on the Gaia-X website. But you also can contact me via LinkedIn or I think most of you know my email address. So feel free to reach out to get in touch with your local hub coordinator. And I'm happy to see you at the Gaia-X Summit in Alicante or at one of the next big Gaia-X events.
Thank you, Jan, for this overview. And in the survey we shared in the chat, we also ask you if you're connected with your local hub. So please do not forget to fill in the form and let us know how you want to get engaged with us and also with the hub. If the hub is not present in your country, we can, of course, have a discussion and see if you would like to contribute in disseminating more about Gaia-X in your country. We will be, of course, more than happy to support you. So thank you again, Jan, and we'll jump to next presentation. So I'd like to call for Dominique. Dominique Epardeau is our lead of the coordination of the Lighthouse projects, but as mentioned earlier, she's also leading the mobility community, the mobility ecosystem, and she's part of Ordonez. And here you are, Dominique, I see you, and the floor is yours.
Thank you, Alessandra. So the idea was just to give you a quick overview of the Lighthouse projects. So you can go to the next slide. So here you have the list of the existing Lighthouse projects, which are already numerous, and we hope that we will be joined very soon with new candidates. So the idea is there is a questionnaire which with some criteria to help you to check whether you can comply with the Lighthouse project, and you can send us your candidate. You can apply to become a Lighthouse project if you wish. So we will be happy to review these documents and contact you. And so maybe you can go to the next slide, unless there are some questions about the existing Lighthouse projects. what we can see is what is very interesting is that, as you were saying before, we try to see what are the connections which can be done between the various Lighthouse projects, and which illustrates the fact that we can work in an interoperable way. So you see the purple square rectangle below, where we have a lot of mobility initiatives, either through Catena-X, more indirectly, I would say, because I would say it's between the mobility and the manufacturing, and which is linked, as we can see in this rectangle, with the mobility data space in Germany, the SCSN projects for the electronic supply chain, and the Future Mobility Initiative, EONA-X, obviously, and Elinor-X, which is also a very interesting initiative in Switzerland. So that's it. We just wanted to share with you the landscape of the Lighthouse project. And well, we also have some connections with the other Lighthouse project, with Data Hub and Omega-X and Structure-X and OIPROGION. So it's very rich. We can not go in all the topics, but just for you to know that we are very active.
No. 10/8 bis 30.
Thank you, Dominique.
That's it for me.
Thank you, Dominique, for the overview on the Lighthouse projects. We are very happy that one of the achievements of the DSBC is to connect all these communities that have been presented. So the Lighthouse projects coordinated by Dominique, the ecosystems and the hubs acting together to achieve Gaia-X market adoption. But we'll quickly jump to the presentations of the ecosystems to keep running with the time, and I'd like to call on stage, on the virtual stage, Maximilian Staebler, who is the co-lead of the mobility ecosystem, and will present us today Gaia-X for Future Mobility, one of the Lighthouse projects announced in Market Access. So Maxi, I believe you have your slides, if you will use slides, so maybe you can share the screen if you wish to use slides.
Yes, sure. I hope you can already see them.
Yes, we do. Thank you for that.
Yeah, so many thanks. Also, many thanks, Dominique. Yeah, so you already introduced me. My name is Maximilian Staebler. I'm working for the German Aerospace Center, in detail, the Institute for AI Safety and Security. That's the institute from Professor Dr. Frank Köster. He's very active, especially in the German Gaia-X domain, or the German Gaia-X hub. So maybe you heard that name before. And yes, since I think 2 months now, I'm the new co-lead supporting Dominique in the mobility vertical, which basically, as the name suggests, deals with all topics that are currently happening Gaia-X related in Europe. And yeah, from our perspective, it made a lot of sense to combine the efforts that are happening currently, especially in Germany and in France, with the Lighthouse projects mentioned, with, for example, Gaia-X for Future Mobility, Project Family, and EONA-X. And yeah, so just maybe a brief overview of what the project family is, because it's a quite new Lighthouse, and there are 6 projects currently up and running, all funded by the German Ministry for Economics and Climate Affairs. And these 6 projects, they deal with different topics in the area of future mobility services. So, for example, the project Gaia-X for Move ID, they focus on self-sovereign identities. The project for Ageda tries to use the onboard computational resources that cars have, for example, to offer and deploy Gaia-X compliant services. So it's a really a good mix of different services that are needed for future mobility applications that are Gaia compliant. And of course, we try to build them as generic as possible so that they can be transformed to other projects in the mobility domain, like, for example, Catena-X or the mobility data space, but also, of course, to other domains in Germany and to other projects that are currently happening in other hubs in Europe. So there's a lot of things going on in the different projects. I don't want to go into detail, but if you're interested in the mobility services, always feel free to contact me. I think Alessandra, you will also share the email address later. So we're always happy to talk about the services we are currently developing. That brings me to the other point, and that's the vertical mobility on a European level. And here we had an exchange together with Dominique on how we want to proceed in the vertical itself. And what we said is that one of the things that are, I think, in every hub, in every country, but also on a European level, very important is to get an overview of what is currently happening in the different projects, what kind of services are being developed, and where synergies can be built and found, so that everything that is being developed can be developed faster, and then of course it's interoperable. So what we plan to do is to create a service landscape as is shown in the picture here. And this service landscape basically shows core services that are defined from Gaia-X, from IDSA, from Catena-X, etc., that are being used to build up interoperable data spaces. And what we did in the project family, so just on a German mobility scale, is to ask the developers. So really important here that we ask the developers on how, on what they are currently developing in the projects and what kind of maturity there currently is. And the result here is basically a heat map that shows you where most actions are currently taken and where some blank fields are still. So maybe these are areas where we need to put more resources in. So it's a really good overview to have. And exactly this, or our goal is in the mobility vertical to do exactly this on a European mobility scale at least. And then of course, if there's interest to also transform this to all the other domains and verticals. So this will be our main goal for the next months, and for this we agreed that we will have a monthly meeting, hopefully on the 25th or around the 25th of each month. And so we will start and of course present what kind of core service we defined, have a discussion if that does fit to all the other projects and projects that are currently planned right now. And then try to work on generating these results. Also, just to mention, we are currently planning as a Lighthouse to have a presentation at the Hannover Fair next year. And the goal here will be to show how these core services that are being developed in the project family can be transferred to other domains and to other projects. So currently we're still in talks on how we exactly want to do this. But I think it's very interesting to also talk about and present the approach we will take here in the mobility vertical as well. But with this, I'm already finished with my slides, and I hope that I can give a short overview of what is currently happening in the German mobility domain, but also on a European level. I think Dominique and I are always happy to get into contact with interested parties and interested companies or interested persons. So feel free to reach out to us. And also, if you have, of course, suggestions on how we or on what content we want to deal with in the mobility vertical, we are always glad to consider this for the agendas of the meetings.
Thank you, Maximilian. Thank you so much for your presentation. I know that you need to step out soon, so I'd like to give the opportunity to Frederick for a question to you. Frederick, please.
Thank you. Can you hear me?
Yep. Yes, we do.
Yes. Okay. Thank you, Maximilian. No, I just wanted to highlight as mobility data space and aerospace data space may have some connections. So to let you know that in aerospace, we are working closely also in the frame of Manufacturing X initiatives to set up a data space with a focus for manufacturing operations, supply chain connectivity, but also traceability. And therefore, I'm interested also to see the service level packages that you may have developed. One of the key issues, as shared with other data spaces, is how to have the starting points, the different building blocks to start with, and also the governance associated to it. So any insights and feedback from you, not during the meeting, but offline, would be nice to share.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you, Frederic. I'm afraid Maximilian is having an issue with his audio, but
I'll be a bit biased towards mobility solutions, but of course it's a good foundation to also transfer to other domains. So if you're interested in this, we can easily have a discussion afterwards.
Thanks.
Perfect. Thank you, Maximilian. Thank you, Federica. And I'll share again my screen to proceed with our next speaker, Dolores Ordonez, who is leading the Gaia-X tourism community, is highly involved in a lot of tourism activities, among which DASES, and she'll give us some insights on all the activities going on. Dolores, the floor is yours. Dolores, I'm afraid I cannot hear you. I'm not sure if it's only my issue or...
No, we don't hear Dolores.
Can you hear me now?
Yes,
Hello?
we do. Perfect.
Okay, perfect. Sorry. So as you know, tourism is something brand new, and we saw in the presentation from Bert in the common data spaces, tourism was not there. So it was something in which we are fighting all the time, and I think it's important to continue doing so, because every time more tourism is getting more recognition at the level of the European Commission, and we consider that is very important. So if we go to the next slide, and we want to compare how important is tourism, if you click all the time, you will see all the numbers, which is the importance of tourism at the level of the European Union, and we could compare them to other sectors just to understand the importance, because at the end, tourism represents 10.3% of the European GDP. If we compare to the automotive industry is 6%. So at the end, we are speaking about a sector that is bringing a lot of not only income, but a lot of impacts at the level of the European Union, and that generates also a lot of data. So in the next slide, you know that we are aligning all the project with dates. Dates is the preparatory action for the European data space for tourism. We are also analyzing, because now that the deployment is going to be launched after summer, and within dates we have starting to identify why tourism needs the data space. And you can see one important thing is tourism is a real fragmented industry. Here we are not going to find only big companies, although we have them, so as big hotel chains or airlines or any kind of entities that are working, so the big platforms for booking systems and so on. But at the end, 85% of the tourism industry is represented by SMEs. And also at the level of the member states, tourism is organized in a different way. So this means that sometimes the competencies on tourism are found at the level of national ministries, other at regional level, other at local level or province level. So this makes that we have a lot of fragmentation in terms of organization of the tourism industry, and then the transversality. Because tourism for us is one of the most transversal industry that exists at the level of the European Union, has a direct link with mobility. I think this is quite obvious, but also cultural heritage that has been mentioned before, and perhaps this is also quite obvious, but with agriculture. It's a direct link with agriculture, with local foods. It has a direct link with environment, sustainability, Green Deal. It has a direct link with the smart cities. It has a direct link with energy, and so on. So we really need to orchestrate all the situations and also to generate frameworks in all this transversality and interaction that are happening at the level of the different actors can be managed in a way that can contribute to Europe to continue being competitive globally. We have the ecosystem, and in the next slide, we have started drafting and putting some logos of different entities that are there. And then that they mention also the importance of being in this ecosystem. So we have public and private entities, small companies, big ones. Of course, we haven't put here all the logos, but of course, I think it's something that in the event that we organized last year, the Tourism Data Space event organized by Gaia-X Europe, we had a great number of people interested, a great number of entities, public and private, from all over Europe that were interested in participating in this working group. That's why we consider that it's the time to start working in this vertical to make it stronger, also to link with the Lighthouse that has been presented by Dominique. And the final slide, also to mention that we have already started to identify different use cases. And these use cases are at different levels. So you have use cases that are more related to the smart destinations, because at the end, all this transversality of the tourism industry that are happening in the destinations and interlink all this mobility, energy, environment, the skills and related with the tourism activity. Environment is fundamental, and of course there are some initiatives that are mentioning the CO2 emissions as a starting point, but also of course energy, waste, and so on are important also for the tourism activity. We have already, Gaia-X had been mentioned, the Olympic Games next year are going to be a great use case to test what we are mentioning here. And then how can we link this seamless travel, in which is quite easy to understand the mobility data space, with the seamless tourism experience? Because at the end, what we want is to increase the tourism satisfaction, the tourism experience, to personalize the tourism experience, that for making that and to generate new business models. Because at the end, when we are discussing about common European data space, the European Commission is asking us which is the added value we are going to bring. We really need to involve all kind of actors in this pilot data spaces. So that's why we are starting now to get in some contact with different entities. That it has been a very positive answer, and we want to create this core group of entities that I think it's going to grow very, very fast, because I think tourism now it became a trend after COVID, but I think it's a very important industry at the level of the European Union. And that's all from my side.
Thank you, Dolores, for your presentation. And indeed, yet again, a reminder for the survey that we shared earlier with you today, to let us know if you want to contribute to the ecosystems. The tourism ecosystem is kicking off soon, so we hope to see your participation there. So I saw a raised hand, but now it's down, so I'll take the chance to go forward and give again the floor to Thomas Hahn for insights on Manufacturing X. Thomas, the floor is yours.
Yes, and I'll share my slides from my desktop, I imagine. Do it immediately.
I have them here.
Yeah, okay, perfect. A brief update, it was mentioned before from Bert. He mentions the Dataspace 4.0 supply coordination supply activity on the European level, where we are working close together with, where also Industry 4.0 initiatives around Europe exchanging this. And the other thing was mentioned also from Frederic, from Airbus, because Frederic and myself, I think, we have every second week a call, how we're bringing the topics together. So, meaning Manufacturing X is an initiative launched at the Hanover Fair in April this year. And maybe when you're just going one slide or two slides ahead, the first is only for information. What we want to do is, when you're looking in the manufacturing domain, you have different topics. I mentioned before the energy, but also when you're looking also only on the domain manufacturing, you have maybe process industry, you have automotive production. Catena-X is a famous topic. You have discrete manufacturing, machine tool building, industry, food and beverage. Let's say this is roughly only to give an snapshot. And the idea behind this is really that these different verticals are, let's say, somehow have to be synchronized, let's phrase it this way. And why? You know, you see it on the right side, the overachieving target are resilient. Think only about the supply chain and the disruption of the supply chain, which we have in the last years, and so makes the supply chain a little bit more robust in the future is a key for the industry. Second example is regarding sustainability. You know, I give always as an example, when you're looking on a shop floor, then on your own shop floor, when you're producing something, you see the scope 1 and scope 2 of the CO2 emission. And scope 1 and scope 2 is what you have inside the building on your shop floor, which energy you are using, and so on. But depending on what you are producing, you see only maybe 10 or 40% of the overall footprint, carbon footprint coming out of the production of a good, because the rest of the footprint is in scope 3. This is the upstream or the downstream where the machine are used. Also meaning to exchange data is from highly relevance, and that's really why we are pushing forward regarding this manufacturing. Or I give you another example. When you're looking at battery production, you know, battery, we are highly depending on material which is somewhere around the world available. Again, here, back to the resilience topic, and not to disrupt the supply chains, but a battery, when you know how the battery is used, produced, and so on, you can above 90% recycle from the battery, which of course, again, giving us some benefit. And last but not least, to make this more resilient, to use this, it makes it at the end competitive. This is somehow the topics focused on manufacturing domains, as you see here on the left side, and explained a little bit where different domains are linked to it. Maybe just go one slide ahead. This is a mission vision. Keep it as a backup. You can read it. That's the reason why I give it to you as a handout. And how we are doing this, maybe you go, please, one slide ahead. We set up some kind of framework. On the top, you see again the strategic goals, the overachieving topics. We are looking also in initiative, thinking about my words about ideas about business models. We introduced DBC. What are here, let's say, existing, what are new business models? This is a yellow. Then we are starting with some kind of use cases in a close collaboration with Catena-X. Manufacturing is going to the shop floor, down to the shop floor. Catena-X is more on the vertical, about the different tiers. We're looking at shared services, federated services, for example, from Gaia-X, how we link this. And of course, we have to be based on regulatory framework and standards, because we have an international exchange regarding standards. Or I give you only one topic regarding regulation. Think about digital product passport. How you can use this across the domain. So that's where we are focusing on. It's just ramping up. We are planning to have this project in international cooperation. Frederic mentioned this before. I mentioned, or Bert mentioned before, the CSA regarding data space 4.0, regarding smart manufacturing. That's where we are targeting for. These use cases and use cases can be really optimization of the production process. Having a CO2 footprint or product carbon footprint, tracking across scope 1, 2, and 3, like mentioned before, and with tracking, of course, and optimization makes a look how we can make autonomous resilience, the supply chains. This is a topic which we're addressing in this blue boxes regarding the use cases. So last slide, I think, and where I mentioned this indirectly, one back, and where's fitting in, you know, if you have the Gaia-X, I mentioned this, you have also some kind of specific standards which are typical in the manufacturing domain. It could be the asset administration shell, it could be OPC-UA, could be companion spec, how to describing machines, because you have to know what it is. And as said before, being from manufacturing perspective, so vertical connection for the Catena-X, which is quietly horizontal oriented. But Frederick mentioned this also before, that we are looking in other production domains, so to say, what is needed. So it's all only to give a glimpse inside. As said before, we are just starting this. Thanks, Alessandra.
Thank you again, Thomas, for your contribution. And I see already connected Federica. And so we are now going to hear on the education ecosystem. And also I see Claudio connected. So I'll hand over to you,
Hello,
Claudio and Federica.
Hello together. Federica, the floor is yours to start.
So Federica, I'm afraid that we cannot hear you. So it's probably, yes, the wrong microphone connected.
Yes. Sorry.
No problem. We'll give her a couple of minutes to join us back. I think she disconnected and she's reconnecting.
We wait on 1 or 2 minutes and after I start. Okay.
Yes.
And I hope that she can come with us.
Yes, let's give her a minute. In the meantime, just a quick reminder yet again on the survey. If there are new joiners that joins for the second hour of this meeting, please find in the chat a link to a survey to tell us on how you would like to contribute to our Gaia-X ecosystems, as well as overall Gaia-X activities and how the association can support in this engagement. So I see that Federica is connected again. Federica, can you hear me?
Perhaps. I don't know. You hear me with no problem?
Yeah, we cannot hear her. Ah, here you go, Federica. I could hear a noise.
Well, I'm not sure. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes, we do hear you now.
Very good, Federica.
Sorry. I do
No
apologize
problem.
to all of you. Well, actually, Alessandra, you're sharing the slides, right?
Yes.
Yeah, thank you. So I think, Claudio, you're going to start from the next one.
Next one. Next one, sorry. Okay,
yes,
thank
good.
you. Yes, we want to explain a little how is our data space. Our data space, I think it's a special data space because we work a lot on human like health, and our data space is human-centric. One part of the problem is that data of child are not sensitive at the GDPR sense. They are very sensitive at the political sense. And we have a lot of constraint to work in our data space because we have a fragmented environment with a lot of small edtechs. And we have to work with all this environment. In fact, there is two things who are very different. We are big organization who are public organization. And work with the public organization, we have a fragmented environment. For example, in France, we have 500 edtech company who work in the educational and lifelong perspective with all the French ecosystem. And for this, we have an organization who is an organization with an association And we work with all the representativity of public and private organization. And this type of organization, we duplicate them at the European level. Next one.
So basically, this is more for information for all of you, just to give the idea of the ecosystem. Well, we call it the ecosystem as well, but we are all the people that are behind all the targets we are having. Of course, the students, families, students and citizens and pupils are at the center of the whole system, and teachers. But of course, you can think there's of course schools, university, all decision makers at any level, local, national, European, and more. And as Claudio said, we have lots of companies. Most of the time, there are more small ones than big ones. That is also why we say that we have a very fragmented environment. But the aim we have is that all the services that are going to be developed should address the whole ecosystem. Next slide, please.
And we start to work, sorry, not in Europe, but we start to work in France 3 years ago, and with all the French organization, public and private, and we answer to a call. It was a French call to organize the first ecosystem in data exchange for start the data space activity. After, to create this, we create an association whose name is Prometheus-X, and it is this association who work with the French level, but the European level. In the vertical, we have 11 meetings, and we work with all the country who come with us, and we have a project, but I hear that our aspiration was good. It's one project who is aspiring to be a Lighthouse project with Prometheus-X project. And we have another project with Merlot, but it's more on research and development project. And in fact, we work a lot with Prometheus-X to have some European fund. And I hope that we have a good news in the next call answer, but we are submitted to our project at 3 calls. One with the DS4 skills call, and it's good for us. And the second is edge skills in the call simple is a cloud to edge federation, and the results was a very good result for us. And who is in process is Surveying-X, simple call for smart middleware platform to cloud to edge federation and data space. And as I heard, perhaps it's very good news that we have today. Perhaps, I don't know exactly, but Federica say me that it's a good news.
Well, we're actually, the edge skills has passed the grant agreement phase, so we're still waiting to know if it's officially awarded. So thanks, Bert, for saying lots of positive things. We think it's in process, but we do hope we will get to the Lighthouse status for Prometheus-X and edge skills awarded very soon. So next slide, please, Alessandra. We'll try to be on time, sorry. So just to give you the idea of the big family use cases we're working on, as we explained, we have actually one big project, aspiring Lighthouse project, which is Prometheus-X. So the family use cases they're actually working on, and all the partners are around, well, providing, creating all the data circulation system so that we can really provide personalized educational services, make personalized skills matching. And with the European funds, we hope to get from edge skills. They're going to work. They want to work lots more on the more cloud edge idea and decentralized analytics and forecast, both from educational, from skill side and learning analytics, all the footprints that are left, every digital solution that are used for education. So those are actually the family use cases we have running. But just to be completely honest about that, is that we also have had a big discussion with the ecosystem. We have during our Gaia-X meetings, and the message we wanted to give to you, that we have some people playing a leading role and going very far away in terms of projection, but the ecosystem still feels it's a very long way to go. I don't know if it's the same for other ecosystems, because and this comes especially from the research institutions or higher education, because Claudio and I represent also public institution, and we know as well that data interoperability is still quite a challenge and long-term one. And so most of our educational system are facing huge digital transformation, and somehow those digital transformation needs to happen so that all this idea of personalized education and personalized skills can really be real. So that's so we have lots of very interesting dynamics, but still a long way to go. And next slide to hand. So, this is the first point, is basically what I said. So the challenges we have is just how to manage this long-term view, which is necessary, and still solving all the short and medium-term issues that are still quite big when you talk about digital transformation in educational systems. As Claudio mentioned, we try to keep a good balance between public and private representation, but we do feel we do have to onboard still other people to the ecosystem under the Gaia-X umbrella, especially what we achieved to do in France, having all the association from EdTechs. We have to get it at the European level, for example, associating European EdTech Alliance, but then we mentioned other initiatives happening at the European level. They still have to be onboarded. What we wanted to highlight is also that, I don't know, I think all the other ecosystems have these issues, but we do have some specific topics. Personal data, maybe we're not the only ones addressing this issue, but we have specific standards for learning analytics, and we just wrote some of them for online assessment. They are very specific to education. And so what we still have to find is that obtaining some consensus to work on common standards within the ecosystem and keeping alignment with all what comes from Gaia-X framework. And in terms of cross-domain collaboration, yes, definitely, we're very open to do so. And we think when it comes to skills dimension, I think we could work with any of you. So we'll be very pleased to do so. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Claudio. Thank you, Federica.
In the final slide, you have our email if you want to contact us, or I will write them in the chat.
Thank you again, Federica. Thank you, Claudio. Thank you for highlighting the challenges, and please, to the next speakers, if you want to react on what are your challenges in your ecosystem, it's very important to highlight them and share best practices across ecosystem. This is part of what we do in the ecosystem coordination activities. And we'll keep the fingers crossed for the project, and looking forward to receiving more news later in these days. Fingers crossed from Gaia-X side. So moving on to energy, I already see connected Olivier Dana and Javier Valiño that will present us the data space energy managed ecosystem at European level from Olivier, and then we'll hear from Javier on Omega X. I believe you will start, Olivier, so the floor is yours.
Hello, everybody. Yes, Javier will present Omega-X, which is a new Lighthouse project in Gaia-X, and I'm very happy of that. I will just do a slight introduction, just to recall that use cases in Omega-X came from, most of them, the use cases described in the energy vertical of Gaia-X that we prepared, and that this project, Omega-X, is an important first block of the common European energy data space that the European Commission wants to build. And in this content, I think it's a very important project. I don't say more because Javier will tell us many things on Omega-X.
Thank you very much, Olivier, and thank you very much for inviting us to present Omega-X here. We are very happy to be here and to raise an awareness of what we are doing. So first, with this slide, I just wanted to provide you with the key figures of what we are doing, who we are. And as Olivier was saying, as we saw in Bert's presentation earlier, we are a project which is partially funded by the European Commission, meaning that we were answering to this sectorial call for data spaces that they issued a couple of years ago. And therefore, what we are doing it in a partnership of 30 partners, which are led by Atos, which is the company I am represented as coordinators. And we started back in May 2022, and it is a 3-year project, meaning that we are more or less approaching the first half of the project. And if we can go to the next slide, also continuing with this idea Olivier was introducing, that our use cases are coming from the Gaia-X use cases for energy that were drafted also a while back, and starting from this and also combining it with what we saw from the European Commission, which is most of it transposed into this digitalization of energy action plan, we drafted these 4 use cases. And as you can see on this slide, we call use case families to this kind of collection of pilot sites, which we are asking them to provide 2 different things. The first thing we are asking them is to make sure that we are demonstrating that there is value for energy stakeholders to share data on a given business idea. So that's the principle for Gaia-X itself, to make sure that we demonstrate that there is value for everybody on sharing data. And the other thing that we are asking them is that, given that we are clustering some demonstrators that are doing more or less the same, try to force them to share data not just inside their ecosystem, but also outside, so we can benchmark. And having said so, our use case families, as you can see on the slide, are clustered into 4 main topics that are also aligned to this digitalization of energy action plan from the European Commission. The first one is on renewables, how to make sure that we are enabling this high penetration of renewables into the mix for our energy infrastructure. And we are focusing in this case on PV plants. We have 3 pilot sites in 2 countries, as you can see on the map, and we are demonstrating there why do we consider beneficial sharing data, in this case by showcasing advanced artificial intelligence services for operation and maintenance of the PV plants, and also providence of synthetic data, which is quite a relevant use case, not just for PVs, but in general. It is very difficult to get anonymized, not business critical data sets that are allowing whoever is willing to use these data sets to improve the way they are producing these artificial intelligence services. And because those data sets are usually business critical, they are kept by large utilities. So the idea would be providing something which is extracting this criticality out of the data set while ensuring that the data set is meaningful enough for whoever is willing to acquire it to drive some advanced functionalities. The second topic we are covering is local energy communities, which is the access through which we are involving end users, buildings, communities, this kind of thing, so the human factor as well. And the idea here is to demonstrate on a lower scale how can we combine together multiple energy vectors? Because when we talk about energy, we tend to think on electricity, but energy is not just about electricity. It is about water, it is about gas, it is about heating and cooling. So the idea here is produce advanced services that are feeding from multiple data sets coming from multiple vectors. If we go lower in scale, we will be able to demonstrate the feasibility of doing so. And we are demonstrating it in 4 different local energy communities in 3 different countries. The third topic we are covering, which is something also we can indicate as potential cross-vertical use case, is the part on electromobility, in which we are trying to demonstrate not just this cross-sector data sharing, but also cross-country data sharing. So we are trying to demonstrate or to test how can we solve this problem of not being able to charge properly whenever we change from country, and we have our own service providers for charging and our own DSO and so on. So the idea would be testing this. Roaming of both booking and self-consumption services across countries. And we are demonstrating it in 2 different pilot sites in 2 countries in Europe. And finally, the fourth use case is about flexibility, which is also a pillar on this digitalization of energy action plan, which is kind of similar to the local energy communities, but growing in scale and considering just electricity. So we are testing it just in 1 pilot site, but it's a big one because it is a whole municipality in Portugal. If we can go to the next slide, please. This contains multiple animations, if I'm not wrong. So this is more or less the high-level architecture. If we click, there are some granularity on each box. And if we click again, the message here is that now that we are on this second phase of the project, we already have our own architecture. We already detected the modules that we are needing, and we did this exercise of matching them with what we can see it is available in the Gaia-X ecosystem, in the IDSA ecosystem. So what we are doing now is trying to build our services based on these open source instantiations of the modules that are available. And as you can see there are much more Gaia-X components than IDSA, and we are doing this work as we speak, and hopefully by the end of the year, we will have something which is operational based on these open source components, plus everything we need as particularities for the Omega X ecosystem. And if we can go to the next slide, which I think it's my last one. This is just to provide you with the technical discourse we have planned for the project, which started back last year with the design phase. Now we have our first release on the architecture and the use cases, so we are more or less clear about what we want to do and how we want to do it. And we moved into the development phase. So we are building up everything we need in terms of digital infrastructure. And once we have this, at the beginning of next year, we will move into the deployment and validation, meaning that we will build everything we need directly at pilot site level, integrating all the horizontal parts that we are developing now. And finally, by the end of 2024 and beginning of 2023, we will finalize with the validation, exploitation, and analysis for replicability and interoperability of the whole ecosystem. And that's everything I had, if I'm not wrong. Thank you very much again, and happy to answer any questions in the session afterwards.
Thank you, Javier. Thank you, Olivier, for your presentation. Very clear, very detailed. That it was great and gives me the opportunity also to remind you all that we collaborate closely with IDSA, but also with FIWARE on the architecture convergence. As you probably are already aware of, the Data Space Business Alliance made many efforts to converge the architecture of the organization, and you can find on the DSBA website the technology convergence document recently also adopted and endorsed by the Data Space Support Center. So thank you again, Javier. Thank you, Olivier. And I'll move forward to health, giving back the floor to Bert Verdonck.
Thank you. So you can move to the next slide. I've primarily given an overview of what we've done so far in this health ecosystem group and what we still think we should do moving forward. Of course, the health domain is a very fragmented domain, and there is not one big unifying health data space activity going on. That would be overly complicated, but we look into several opportunities in order to create more convergence in these health data sharing initiatives. This working group started quite early, already late 2020. We have published a position paper April 2021, which is still actually very well up to date and describing the directions that a health ecosystem could follow. And we have illustrated many of the thoughts and principles of that positioning paper in the event we had in early April last year. And a lot of those activities have continued in our monthly community meetings. So a lot of these things have been described in the paper. Also, the materials from the event are still available on the Gaia-X website. So a lot of these things can be consulted. We have a dynamic monthly community meeting still going on where we discuss various things. And of course, the European Health Data Space regulation is the big regulatory framework that is on the horizon and that will change the landscape in the health domain. Oh, that's a bit too quick. Of course, as part of that discussion, that regulation still needs to come to more detailed discussions that are ongoing regarding the health data standards to use to improve interoperability. A lot of discussion also on consent management and identification of both patients and care professionals. So those are the topics that typically keep us busy there. And in the meetings, we also try to do matchmaking between many smaller projects, national scale, European scale, trying to form a Lighthouse initiative. We don't have a strongly labeled Lighthouse project as of today, not according to the Gaia-X definition, but there are many project candidates, and I've listed some down on the page here, which we try to extend, make them cross-border, and try to see if we could merge some of these into a larger Lighthouse project. We also did 2 dedicated startup events because we also want the SME community to be able to participate. And there you see that the Gaia-X framework is still complicated and difficult to understand and grasp for SMEs to participate. So that's clearly an area where we need to do more work. We had the 3 sub-working groups kicked off, one of which is still continuing, specifically on the identity and consent management. And these Lighthouse projects are ongoing, and we allow them to frequently present in our community to share the progress and the lessons learned in these initiatives. So that's what we have been doing so far. And moving forward on the next slide, you will see this is recently compiled from the interests of our working group. People are very interested in the ongoing projects, want to hear more about it. There's also more discussions going on in Germany about unifying some of these initiatives. Of course, everyone is very eager to know more about the European Health Data Space. There is a pilot project already running there, led by the French Health Data Hub, and we keep a close eye on that. And the regulation itself is in active negotiation by the member states, by the European Parliament, and it's very interesting to see. Just one indicator, the Parliament itself had submitted 1,000 amendments for that regulation. So you can see a bit the intensity of the debates and the lobbying that is going on into such a regulation. So we try to keep a pulse on that with our community. Again, the SME point is mentioned here. The readiness of Gaia-X for SMEs needs to improve, and all of us are also very eager to learn more about the simple components and building blocks and how they will be or should be used in the implementation of the European Health Data Space. Also, governance keeps popping up back as an area where more work needs to be done for participants of a data space to have components and building blocks of how to implement a functioning governance structure. So that's more or less where the health ecosystem stands. A lot more to do, but happy to see that we have a quite active community here, very eager to further share knowledge cross-border the representation is very European actually here in this working group. So we try to continuously further the knowledge exchange between this community and find ways of how we can implement the Gaia-X building blocks into the creation of larger cross-border health data spaces in the future. Give it back to you, Alessandra.
Thank you, Bert. And we hope that following this event, we'll have even more active contributors to the health ecosystems, especially SMEs and startup. But let's go on with other sectors. And we are also back on track with time. So thank you for all the speakers. And I'll give the floor now to Lucas Schreiber. I'm sorry for my pronunciation, Lucas, that will provide us some insights on the logistics ecosystem. Lucas, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Alessandra. Yes, my second name is not that easy to pronounce, so no worries. Yes, thanks for the introduction. Today I'm going to give a quick insight to our working group, our ecosystem logistics, and what we do there. And yeah, if you go to the next slide, I brought our big picture of the ecosystem logistics. So in many discussions with other ecosystems and other hubs, we recognize that logistics is, of course, a cross-sectional task with many interfaces to other ecosystems. So there are a lot of synergies that, we have to get. But we can also differentiate from other ecosystems. So I just wanted to give you a quick overview on our big picture, what we want to achieve with data spaces in Gaia-X. And on the left-hand side, you can see a real supply chain, a real value network, and you can just like get it on different levels. So if you start on the bottom level, there is mostly a human or a machine who's doing some tasks, just like producing something, organizing a warehouse. And of course, the sum of all these entities can be summarized to a production site, as you can see in the middle, where you have warehouses, production lines, and if we go on the top level, then we have the supply chain where the logistics really happens. So logistics also happens at production sites with intralogistics. But on the top level, you have the supply chain where you have carriers, service providers who bring stuff from A to B. So that's the real value network. And what we want to achieve is to get into, as we call it at our institute, a digital continuum. So a digital twin as a shared data space for the whole supply chain. And there we also want to have these different levels of aggregation. And for us, it is important that we have like a horizontal aggregation and a vertical integration. So our goal is that we collaborate within a supply chain, that we have different entities, so different companies work together, because information sharing is really a huge aspect in forming resilient and sustainable and efficient supply chains for the future. So what we want to do is really get data from the bottom level. So for example, via smartwatches of humans, we can have like OPC UA interfaces for machines. Then we can aggregate all it to a production site where we have a digital twin of a production site. And then we have this digital twin of a production site incorporated in our supply chain digital twin, where we also have like service providers. We can have digital twins of ships, carriers, and we can get information, for example, from the production site of our supplier to our production site to use this information to be more efficient in configuring our scheduling, for example. So this is like what we want to do, get data on the horizontal and vertical level and aggregate it in the data space. And then we want to find industrial use cases and get industrial stakeholders who can really benefit from some apps or use cases. For example, you could have a collaborative simulation with a dynamic risk assessment so that you can see if your supplier has some bottlenecks in producing or within their suppliers, their bottlenecks, then we can just like reschedule our plans on a real-time databases. If we go a level deeper, That's what I mentioned, that we have a real-time scheduling or routing. Also, if you watch at customers for our production site, and we can also have maintenance decisions and can decide when we have a maintenance issue, which other machines, for example, could overtake the working on the actual product. And on the most bottom level, the integration of human data to have a process optimization, for example. So these are just like some examples of how use cases could look like. And later on, I will give you a specific use case we're working on. But on the next slide, I just summarized really quickly what I just said. So these data spaces really play an important role in collaborating. All entities of a sub-supply chain should send real-time status on a rolling basis to a decentralized data chain. And then we can trigger apps and really have industrial stakeholders benefit from using this data space, because this is really an issue that we cope with, telling especially service providers or small and medium-sized companies what is the real benefit of using data spaces like Gaia-X. Yes, that's like our big picture. And now we want to zoom in to perhaps some of a use case that we are actually in talks with at the moment in our working group. We also have the German Research Institute for Artificial Intelligence, and they are in contact with a pallet provider called CHEP. And that's on the next slide, where we can see what a use case or real benefit for a company could look like. So to give you a little bit background of what CHEP does, they operate the biggest equipment pool of its kind with 150 million pooled pallets and containers, which are all across Europe. But the business model is based on share and reuse. So they actually do not sell their pallets, but they pool them. So you could not buy a CHEP pallet, but you can just rent it. And you can get this equipment you need on a rent basis. On the right-hand side, you can see what a loop of such a pallet could look like. We have a fast-moving consumer goods manufacturer, for example, who uses the pallet, ships it to its central warehouse, and finally into retail. But at the time, the pallets need maintenance, of course, so they go back to the CHEP. And also we have a CHEP warehouse where you can redistribute these pallets. So in these pallets, they are equipped with tracking, for example, and they are connected to the data space to share information and use this information to make more intelligent decisions. And I just brought 4 exemplary use cases or benefits that one could do. For example, a pallet-based order control, so that the pallet can independently assign itself to shipping orders, intralogistic stuff, form lists, and can just like do the order control by itself in the data space. We could also transport the carrier performance, so emission tracking, time performance of our partners in the supply chains, and then we can derive recommendations from that. We can track incoming goods, of course. As you can track the pallets, we also know what is on them. And so we also can see the status of the goods that we will receive and use this information to just like plan ahead for what we do with the incoming goods. And the last example would be maintenance management. So the pallet agent identifies maintenance needs based on time-defined periods and triggers, and can really say, okay, I have to go to the CHEP maintenance site to be repaired and go back to use. And this will also help, just like an old static maintenance management. Okay, that was one specific use case. I hope I could give you some insights on what we are working on. And if you have any questions now or afterwards, I'll be happy to answer them.
Thank you, Lucas, for your presentation. And the presentations have a practical presentation on how this use case looks like. So it's very useful to see also practically what it means. I'll go on with the next speakers and keep the questions at the end, as we are almost there. And I'd like to call Emmanuel Mondon. on our virtual floor to give us insight on the location ecosystem that we recently merged. We recently merged the geoinformation and space into the location ecosystem, but I see Emmanuel and he will give us insights on it. Emmanuel, the floor is yours.
Good afternoon. May I share my screen, please?
Of course.
Yeah. Let's try. I have a super good news for you.
Tell us.
I received this morning an email, and that's what I will display, coming from GeoBiz, a marketing research firms related to geospatial. Do you see my screen?
Yes, we do.
Yeah. So that was the email. And look at this. The global geospatial industry is estimated to be $512 billion this year. Guess what? 1.37 trillion in 3 years. In 7 years. By 2030. Woohoo! I am in the big industry. You see that? It's a big opportunity. And there is direct economic impact of approximately 30 trillion. So you see how it is important? So indeed, Alessandra was mentioning that for more than 2 years, we had 2 working groups, one focusing on geoinformation and one focusing on space. And we realized at the last DSBC ecosystem hubs meeting, not last, the one before, end of October in Palma de Mallorca, that it's too complex. For guys working within finance, agriculture, health, and so on and so forth, it was not super understandable to have to. So we decided to merge, as simple as that. So geoinformation plus space equal location. And if you should keep one message, when you have 2D, 3D, or even time questions, XYZT, when you need information related to XY, XYZ, XYZT, please come to us and we will help. So who are us? Christian Linder from the German Space Agency is leading this location ecosystem working group at the European level. He's working for the Institution of Transportation in Germany. And then there are 2 colleagues, Antti Jacobson, who is working for the National Land Survey of Finland. He will be focusing on the geoinformation side, and I will focus on the space side. So what is happening? Antti is coordinating, and that's why he's more focusing the geoinformation, is coordinating a location innovation hub. You may have heard about various DAH. There is one in Europe related to location. So you see Gaia-X location innovation hub. You see the parallel? So this location hub will support whomever interested in getting access to geospatial resources, knowing whatever is happening and getting expertise and experience. The outcomes of this location innovation hub are threefold. Building the reference data for various data spaces, because if we have data spaces verticals such as health, finance, agriculture, and so on and so forth, we are considering the location data space as an horizontal, supporting a number of various and different data spaces. There are as well innovation expected. Innovation from a business model point of view and from technology as well. So, for instance, we should be able to provide information you need through APIs you're able to manage. And then the last point is the test environment. And there are already a number of test beds existing and the idea is to combine it in order to make it smooth for you. So why having combined geoinformation and space? Because in fact, some data is acquired by space assets, some other is acquired by in situ or aerial assets, but nobody cares at the user perspective. You want to access to an information having a geolocation, XY, XYZ, XYZT, and that's it. And you don't care if it's coming from space or from in situ or from air. So that's why we decided to join forces. That's it, Alessandra. Less than 10 minutes. Can you believe this?
Thank you, Emmanuel. Thank you for that.
I forgot something.
Then it's not less than
the first meeting of this new working group dedicated to location at the European level is 40th of September from 1 to 3 PET. Please join. To give you a matrix, we were between 15 and 20 within the space working group, between 10 and 15 within the geoinformation working group, from 5 to 10 different countries. So we do expect 30 people from 10 different countries for the location ecosystem working group. Thanks.
Thank you, Emmanuel. And indeed, we do hope that this event and the presentation of the ecosystem will facilitate further contribution to the first meeting of the location ecosystem. So we are over with the presentations of the all ecosystems. As we said, today we presented 8 of the 16 ecosystems. We are going to organize another data space business committee event in September to present the other 8 ecosystems, among which finance, smart cities, agriculture, smart living, construction, and others. But now I would like to give the floor to you all for your questions. So please, if you have any questions, just raise your hand and open your mic, and we'll be here to answer you. Mano-san, please.
Yes, good afternoon. This is Dorothy from Data Society Alliance Japan. So thank you for joining coordinated interesting meeting. So anyway, I announced that we are expecting to have a second roundtable meeting for Data Society in Berlin. Week of the next week, that is July 17, 19, Berlin, by way of forum. If the registration page is already open, so if all those who are interested, please join. You can also join by web meeting or in person. And web meeting access will be provided by email after your registration. Just for your information.
Thank you, Mano-san. Unfortunately, we could not hear clearly, but I grasped that you were mentioning the second roundtable. So I believe that we can write the details of the second roundtable in the chat if everyone is interested in contributing and participating.
Thank you, Alexander. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Is there any other question? And of course, if you have also practical questions on how to contribute to the ecosystems, and I see a hand raised, Joseph.
I am interested in the AHDS2 pilot in France that Bert has talked about. Can you provide me a contact name or a web URL where to get more information?
Sure, I can do that, Joseph. And I'm working to schedule them for an upcoming community meeting to present also to the entire community.
Great, thank you.
Okay.
Thank you. And thank you, Emmanuel, for sharing your contact in the chat. If you wish to contribute, hopefully we'll find feedback to the survey from your side, but otherwise you can contact me and I'll be more than happy to redirect you to the ecosystem lead to get you onboarded in the ecosystem activities. I'll ask if there are any other questions or remarks or suggestions on how to improve this event or any activity of the Data Space Business Committee. Of course, any feedback from your side is more than appreciated. Otherwise, I would check if Thomas is connected and would like to spend a few final remarks to conclude the meeting. Thomas, I see you connected, but we
now
cannot.
you can hear me, maybe.
Yes,
yeah,
now we can hear
so,
you.
know,
Yes.
because I have to drive and I have two buttons to close the mic and I have to open it again twice. No, many thanks. I think it was a very good event. As you said, always very welcome to get hints for improvement. And as you said, next time we will have other lighthouses. And as said before, we'll try to keep you informed twice a year. And if anything happening in the meantime, if you want to have a contact, also, you know, somebody just asked for the link for a project, please contact Alessandra, contact us. We are here to help you.
Thank
That's
you.
all from my side. And
thank you, Thomas. We'll let you drive safe.
Yeah,
so,
not a problem.
I'd like to thank you all again for your participation. Special thanks to all the speakers making themselves available to present the ecosystem activity, and of course for the constant contribution to making Gaia-X a reality. And thank you again. The event will be available on the members platform for all your colleagues that could not join us today. And again, thank you and have you all a nice afternoon.